Welcome back to Elderly Smiles. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and click the bell icon to stay updated. Let's begin the discussion.
Hey everyone, welcome back. We love to take these deep dives together, and today we're tackling something I think we can all relate to, aging gracefully.
Absolutely. It's a topic that's near and dear to my heart.
I think as we get older, we realize there's more to it than just, the physical aspects.
Yeah, it's about living a fulfilling life, right? Finding that sense of purpose and meaning as we navigate this new chapter.
Exactly. And I stumbled on this fascinating article the other day, and it really got me thinking.
Oh yeah, what's the article about?
It's basically a guide to thriving in our later years, and it's full of these really practical tips and insights.
Well, I'm all ears.
So it's broken down into 3 main sections: things not to say, things not to do, and even types of people to avoid.
That's interesting. I'm curious to see where this goes.
Me too. So let's start with the first part, things we should probably think twice about saying. And the first one that really jumped out at me was this idea of avoiding speaking about other people's weaknesses.
Yeah, that's a big one, right? Especially as we get older and relationships become even more precious.
Totally. Because the article makes this point that, words can be like weapons. They can really hurt.
That's a powerful image. Words as weapons.
Yeah, so it's not about, pretending everything's perfect or ignoring problems, but about finding a way to communicate that's both honest and kind.
I think that's the key, isn't it? Finding that balance between honesty and compassion.
Absolutely. And I was thinking about this. We've all probably been on the receiving end of a thoughtless comment that just stuck with us.
Oh yeah, for sure. Sometimes those words can sting even more as we get older.
Right. And, we're not always aware of the battles people are fighting, so it's important to choose our words carefully.
It's like walking on eggshells sometimes. But I think it's more about being mindful and respectful of other people's journeys.
Exactly. And, instead of focusing on what we perceive as wrong with someone, maybe we can try to focus on their strengths and their potential.
I love that. Shifting the focus from criticism to encouragement.
Yeah. Because everyone has something special to offer, right?
Yeah.
And it's about recognizing that and helping them shine.
It's about being a cheerleader rather than a critic.
Totally. And I think it's important to remember that everyone's on their own path and we don't always have the answers.
Yeah, sometimes the best thing we can do is just listen and offer support.
Exactly. Okay, so moving on to the second thing, the article suggests we avoid saying, which is bragging about ourselves.
Oh, that's a good one. It's easy to fall into that trap, especially if we've achieved a certain level of success or recognition.
I know. It's like sometimes we feel the need to prove ourselves or toot our own horn.
But the article makes this a really interesting point. It says that true confidence speaks for itself.
I like that true confidence speaks for itself.
It's about knowing our own worth and letting our actions speak louder than our words.
It's like that saying, empty barrels make the most noise.
Right, exactly.
Right.
The people who are truly secure in themselves don't feel the need to constantly brag or seek validation.
And I think as we get older, it's easy to get caught up in comparisons.
Yeah.
We might start to feel like we need to prove our relevance or our worth.
Yeah, I can see that happening, especially in a society that often values youth and productivity.
But the article reminds us that our experiences and our wisdom, these are all things that become more valuable with time.
Absolutely. We have so much to offer, even if it's not always flashy or attention-grabbing.
Right. So how do we cultivate that quiet confidence without feeling the need to boast or toot our own horn?
That's a good question. I think it starts with recognizing that our worth isn't tied to external achievements or accolades.
It's about recognizing our own intrinsic value.
Right.
And not letting external factors define us.
Exactly. And I think it's also about appreciating our journey, the ups and downs, the lessons we've learned along the way.
It's about embracing all of it, right? The good, the bad, and everything in between.
And focusing on contributing to the world in ways that feel meaningful to us.
I love that, focusing on what feels meaningful to us. So speaking of approaching life with meaning, that leads us to the third thing the article suggests we avoid saying, which is anything meaningless or worthless.
That's an interesting one. I'm curious to hear more about that.
So the article talks about the power of silence and choosing our words carefully.
Oh, that's so true. It's like we're constantly bombarded with noise and information these days.
It's easy to get caught up in that.
Right.
And to forget the importance of just being present and mindful.
Yeah, and I think as we get older, we have a responsibility to be more intentional with our words and our actions.
Totally. Because our words have an impact, right? They can either uplift or they can tear down.
They can create connection or they can cause division.
Exactly. And, it makes me think about the power of listening. As we get older, we have so much to offer in terms of perspective and experience, but we also have a responsibility to listen to others, to really hear them and validate their experiences.
That's such an important point. Listening is a gift, and it's something that becomes even more valuable with time.
Right, because sometimes the most powerful thing we can say is nothing at all. It's about allowing space for reflection, for contemplation, for the other person to feel heard and understood.
That's beautiful. It's about creating a space for genuine connection.
And, in a world that often values speed and efficiency, it can be challenging to cultivate this art of speaking less but saying more.
It's a practice, right?
Right.
And it takes effort, but I think it's so worth it.
Totally. So how do we embrace the power of silence and mindful communication in a world that's constantly telling us to do more? Say more, be more.
That's a great question. I think it starts with recognizing that our words have a ripple effect. They can have a profound impact on the people around us.
And I think it's about remembering that we have a choice in how we use our words. We can choose to be kind. We can choose to be compassionate. We can choose to uplift and inspire.
Exactly. And I think that's a beautiful way to approach aging gracefully, with intention, with purpose, and with a heart full of love and kindness. And it really is a choice, isn't it? To be mindful of our words and the impact they have.
It is. And that actually leads perfectly into the second part of this article, which is all about things we should stop doing. And the first one is don't compare yourself to others.
Oh, that's a tough one, right? In today's world, it's so easy to get caught up in comparisons.
It is. Especially with social media and everything. It's like we're constantly bombarded with images of other people's seemingly perfect lives.
Exactly. And it's easy to start feeling inadequate or envious. Like we're not measuring up.
And I think as we get older, it can be even harder.
Yeah.
We might start comparing ourselves to our younger selves.
Yeah, and mourning the loss of youth or vitality or whatever it might be.
But the article makes a really good point. It says that comparison is a thief of joy.
Ooh, I like that comparison as a thief of joy.
It robs us of the present moment and prevents us from appreciating our own unique journey.
It's like we're so busy looking over our shoulders that we forget to enjoy the view in front of us.
So how do we break free from that cycle of comparison and start appreciating our own path?
Well, I think it starts with gratitude. Taking the time each day to acknowledge the good things in our lives.
Oh, I love that gratitude. It's so powerful.
It is, and it doesn't have to be anything big. It could be something as simple as a warm cup of coffee or a beautiful sunset.
It's about shifting our focus from what we lack to what we have right.
Exactly. And it's also about recognizing that everyone's journey is different.
Oh, yeah. That's so important. We all have our own unique timelines, challenges, and triumphs.
Comparing ourselves to others is like comparing apples to oranges. It just doesn't make sense.
Love that analogy. And, it makes me think about the importance of celebrating our own milestones, no matter how big or small.
Absolutely. Whether it's learning a new skill or finally finishing that project we've been putting off.
It's about acknowledging our own progress and giving ourselves credit for the effort we're putting in.
Exactly. And the second thing the article advises us not to do is to hurt others.
Yeah, that seems pretty straightforward, but it's something we can all struggle with at times.
It is. We're all human and we make mistakes.
And sometimes we might hurt others unintentionally, without even realizing it.
Yeah, and sometimes it might be intentional, but even then it's important to remember that hurting others ultimately hurts ourselves.
It creates this cycle of negativity that can be really toxic.
It's like that saying, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
So powerful. It just doesn't work, does it?
Nope. So how do we break free from that cycle of hurt and cultivate more kindness and compassion?
It's a good question. I think it starts with recognizing that everyone is doing the best they can with the tools and resources they have at any given moment.
It's about extending grace to ourselves and others, right?
Exactly. And understanding that we're all works in progress.
We all have our own baggage, our own struggles, our own stories.
And it's about choosing empathy over judgment, understanding over blame.
And recognizing that our actions have consequences.
It's about taking responsibility for the impact we have on others.
And even small acts of kindness can make a big difference.
They really can. So speaking of making a difference, that brings us to the third thing the article advises us to avoid doing, which is chasing after meaningless or worthless gains.
Ooh, that's an interesting one. What does that even mean?
Well, I think it's about examining our values and asking ourselves what truly matters to us.
Because it's easy to get caught up in that pursuit of external validation, right?
It is. Society tells us that we need to have a certain amount of money, a certain job, a certain lifestyle in order to be happy.
But true fulfillment comes from aligning our actions with our values.
It's about pursuing goals that are meaningful to us, not just those that society deems important.
Exactly. And it might be spending quality time with loved ones, contributing to our community, pursuing a creative passion, or simply living a life of integrity and purpose.
And, the article suggests that when we focus on those intrinsic values, the external rewards often take care of themselves.
It's not about chasing after happiness. It's about creating a life that naturally leads to happiness.
I love that, creating a life that naturally leads to happiness. So how do we figure out what truly matters to us? How do we filter out all the noise and discover those core values that guide our decisions and bring meaning to our lives?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And I think it's a journey of self-discovery that can unfold over time.
It's about paying attention to what brings us joy, what ignites our passion, what makes us feel truly alive.
Yeah, it's about tuning into that inner voice, the one that whispers those little nudges and insights.
And, speaking of navigating life's journey, that actually brings us to the final part of this article, which focuses on the people we choose to surround ourselves with. It's like our relationships are this garden, and we need to be mindful of what we're planting and nurturing.
Oh, I love that analogy, the garden of relationships.
Right. Because just like in a garden, there's some plants that thrive and others that, they kind of wither away.
Exactly. And it's our responsibility to tend to that garden, to make sure we're surrounding ourselves with people who nourish and support us.
Totally. And the first type of person the article advises us to be mindful of is unhappy and selfish people.
Mm.
It's like their negativity can be contagious,
Oh, for sure. It's like they drain your energy and leave you feeling depleted.
And I think as we get older, it's especially important to protect our energy, right?
Absolutely. We don't have the same reserves we used to.
Yeah. So how do we recognize those energy vampires and set healthy boundaries?
Well, I think it starts with paying attention to how we feel after spending time with someone. Do we feel energized and uplifted, or do we feel drained and exhausted?
That's a great question to ask ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's also about recognizing patterns of behavior. Is this person always needing something without giving much in return?
Exactly. And it's okay to set boundaries, to say no to requests that feel overwhelming or to limit the amount of time we spend with certain people.
It's about prioritizing our own well-being and recognizing that we deserve to be in relationships that are reciprocal and fulfilling.
Absolutely. And, speaking of recognizing red flags, the next type of person the article cautions us about is someone who only thinks of their own benefit.
Ooh, yeah. Those are the ones who are always looking for an angle, right?
Exactly. And they can be very charming and manipulative, using their charisma to get what they want.
It's like they see people as stepping stones to their own success.
And, the article suggests that these individuals often lack integrity and honesty. They're more focused on winning than on building genuine connections.
So how can we protect ourselves from these master manipulators?
Well, I think it's important to pay attention to inconsistencies between someone's words and actions. Do they make promises they don't keep? Do they talk a big game but fail to follow through?
Those are definitely warning signs. And it also makes me think about the importance of trusting our gut instinct. If something feels off about someone or a situation, it probably is.
Absolutely. Our intuition is a powerful tool, and we should never ignore it.
And finally, the last type of person the article advises us to be mindful of is someone who is untrustworthy, which, seems pretty obvious, but it's worth emphasizing because trust is the foundation of any healthy relationship.
It is, and the article makes this interesting point. It says that untrustworthy people not only betray the trust of others, but they also erode their own integrity and self-worth.
It's like they're slowly chipping away at their own foundation.
And eventually it's going to crumble.
Wow. That's a powerful image. So, as we wrap up this conversation, I'm struck by how simple yet profound these principles are. It's not rocket science, right?
It's not, but sometimes the simplest things are the hardest to put into practice.
That's true. But I think it all comes down to awareness. Being mindful of our thoughts, our words, our actions, and the company we keep.
And remembering that aging gracefully is a journey, not a destination.
It's about embracing the wisdom we've gained along the way and using it to create a life that is rich in meaning, purpose, and connection.
And surrounding ourselves with people who uplift and inspire us.
Absolutely. Well, this has been such an enriching conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your insights.
It's been a pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the art of aging gracefully. We hope you found it valuable and inspiring. Remember, every day is a new opportunity to grow, to learn, and to create a life that truly reflects your values and aspirations. So keep shining. keep thriving, and keep embracing the beauty of this incredible journey we call life.